Hey everybody, welcome to Summit Up, brought to you by the Summit Dover. If religion's giving you more questions than answers, you're in the right place. So sit back and open your minds with us. I'm Josh All, and I'm sitting here with Kyle Schweitzer and the man with the answers himself, Pastor Rob Coburn.
All right.
Wow. It's been a wild ride this last little while, talking about all the different ways that we process information and the shape of our heart and the lens in which we look at life through and all those different things. Just so much fun hearing everybody's perspective at the table. And so today, I think that we can tackle one of the things that I think holds us back from our destiny, and that is actually living in the promise that God has for us. And so that's just a huge thing that as we talk with people, in our counseling sessions and our time together, a lot of people are afraid to step into what they believe God's calling them to do. So real quickly, I want to talk about how this all came to be, this studio, this thing, this dream. I want to talk about that for a second, because that is actually a picture of where I want to go with this episode, because you guys walked into something that was unknown and were able to process it, to not overthink it and just do it in some cases, but also see the hand of God working. So tell everybody, all the viewers, about what the process of this studio, this network, all that stuff came to be. How did that happen?
Well, I will say that this is episode 18 and not episode 24, because we did overthink it just a little bit at first. But I don't know. We just kind of had a moment, Kyle and I, that we said we need to do something. I don't know what it was. Can you explain? Like, we were just kind of had a feeling, like we just felt like we needed to.
Well, I make that feeling is we had a call out to make the difference, to go out and to what energy that we're putting out. We were putting out a lot of energy, and then we're kind of looking around and we're like, well, are we really impacting people's lives with what we're doing and the skills that we have, and what can we do to put our skills to the test and get it out there to where it can, there's a lot of people that have a lot better things to say than me, but we have the skills to put it together and get that content out there. And that was our goal. We wanted to help people get the message out that made the difference, that's going to make an impact on people's lives. And I think that's where it's called, but we didn't know what it looked like. And of course we were a little nervous about it.
No, yeah, absolutely. And then that's where, seeking out the people that can help you, the people you trust, and surrounding yourself with the right people. And I'm talking about the other person sitting at the table, right? Kyle had the idea of, why don't we start a podcast? I said, instantly I was like, oh, that's great. That's a great idea. I can see it. I've got all these connections in the community. We can start reaching out to these people and do a feature episode on this person or this organization or, whatever. And then we sat down and had lunch with Pastor Rob one day, and he so wisely said, why not just produce podcasts for different organizations? Yeah. Let everybody have their own show. And that was the light bulb there. And then it just, boom.
Well, things just kind of lined up. When we felt the call, we understood that, I don't have a clue what this is going to look like, but, going through life and trying to decide whether you move forward or you just stay. You can stay, it could be safe, and you can be consistent, and no problem. I mean, right. But to move forward, you just take a bit of courage. And it is a few times where we're like, no, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be able to pull this off. But, as that doubt came in, where that fear always came in, we talked about that in episodes of when fear is put in you, and then we're like, okay, that means, and then it's kind of all timing of everything. So that means that there's something that right about what we're doing. And that, I think that we are going to start making that difference.
Yeah, we had a podcast a few weeks ago where we had, a group of recovery or people that are in recovery, drug addiction. And one of the young guys said something, the greatest advice that he had been given was that everything you have right now is in your comfort zone, but everything you want is outside of it. So you have to actually, if you really want these, all these things, like for us, what we were called to do, what we saw in our head, if we wanted that, we had to actually do it. We had to get out of our comfort zone. I've never talked on a microphone before. Before the first episode to Sum It Up. And now I've done it, I don't know how many times. I mean, people probably get sick of hearing to me.
Hundreds, I'm sure.
But I mean, it's one of those things. And if you don't start, there's no way to get anywhere.
Well, I do want to speak on getting that start, because I know that you look at a lot of companies and say, where were their beginnings? Where did they begin? Out of their garage or where, of course, where they have, everyone has to start somewhere. And then that's where we had to we had to say, okay, there's a bigger picture that it's going to be. And we have to realize that it's beyond what we can even imagine. So that is okay. And then we're like, well, let's just start and see where it goes. We talked about this last night. We started on a conference room table. Okay, that worked out. What can we do now? Let's build a table. Let's do this. Let's make it up. Let's keep innovating and keep going and try to see what's next. And that we're already talking about what's next and plans.
Like the third episode of Sum It Up, we decided let's throw a video camera up there and do a quick 30-second promo recapping the episode for everybody. And it's like, oh, that turned out pretty cool. Well, and then a couple episodes later, well, let's record an episode and see what happens on an iPhone,
Yeah.
Now we've got this great
awesome
camera and a set in here. It's just, and it went fast. It came fast.
So let's talk about the scripture that I want to talk about today is Numbers 13. You can also find it in Deuteronomy 1. It's about the children of Israel looking at the promised land, going and spying it out and all that stuff. Obviously, 10 of those spies had a giant moment in their life where they saw something and said, there's no way. And what I want to talk about is the promise that comes before that. The promise was, this is the land I'm giving to you, go possess it. And they said, well, they sort of questioned, wobbled around for a while. And then they said, well, let's send spies in. And if you go to Deuteronomy 1, verse 21, it says, look, the Lord your God has set the land before you. Go up and possess it. As the Lord of your fathers has spoken to you, do not fear or be discouraged. And every one of you came to me. So this is Moses recapping what happened. Every one of you came to me and said, let us send men before us and let them search out the land for us and bring back word to us by which the way we should go up and of the cities in which we shall come. The plan pleased Moses. This is a leader who is swayed by the doubt of his people. And so I love the story of the podcast and how you guys are doing this and the network and all that stuff, because you had many giant moments along the way where you guys could have said, we're going to just research this for about another 6 months and not do it. And I know that there are people out there watching and listening that you've been at the pinnacle of crossing the Jordan into the promised land and you have not moved. You've sent spies out. You've sent another set of spies out. You've sent another set of spies out. And even though they may be giving you the answer that you want, you still haven't pulled the trigger. And so the apathy and the hesitation that comes by not believing the promise is what I want to hone in on today. So God promises each of us that he will never leave us or forsake us. You can read all throughout Scripture. He wants the best for us in every situation. So he's not leading us into failure. There are challenges that we go through, but we never go through a challenge that there isn't a promised land on the other side. And so in your scenario, using this as the baseline for this, your scenario, you had those giant moments. What was your thought process and why didn't you just stop?
Oh man. And so that's a tough one because there is doubt whenever you're trying to do something that I guess you're just not sure about. But I guess, the one thing that I kept coming back to was that vision that we had. And the thing is, I saw it so clearly in my head. I didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but I knew that it was there. And we just had to keep pushing forward and that more doors would open up. I mean, we had 2 podcasts when we first started, 1, and then we got a second one. We kind of did those for a while. And here within the next month, we'll be putting out podcast number 10 or so. I'm losing track already. It's crazy.
And all of that, this is the thing that gets me, is all of that through one of the biggest economic downturns in the last 10 years at least. When people are quarantined in their houses, you know, all the craziness that's gone on in 2020, and you're talking about the success of walking in and creating something new. I know that a lot of people have checked out of church. They've checked out of life. They're okay to sit and watch 6 hours of Netflix every day. And they're not going after what they believe. Maybe they don't know what they believe God's promised them, but they're not going after anything at this point. And so that today would be a day of motivation to do something. Even in the economy the way it is, you guys have started 10 podcasts and have changed the lives of lots of people.
Well, I want to speak to that a little bit about not going after it, because I'm fearing that society, and I'm not going to get political, but I'm thinking that society is trying to kind of say, we'll take care of you. You know, there's no need for you to have to go and, you know, go after it. You're just stay put, and we've got this for you. Don't worry, we've got it. But that concerns me, because that takes all the fire out of any type of passion that someone has, because then it's like, okay, I guess I'll just wait, or if you're going to take care of me, I guess I don't have to. So where's the motivation to go there? Which I'm like, so yes, so over the situation we're in has kind of put us in an interesting spot, because we're like, well, am I allowed to do this? Do I have permission from our leaders to, I'm going to stop. But, anyway, I don't want to get too into this, but like that's kind of the questions that we have to continue to ask, because, you know, Josh and I were like, geez, maybe, man, this is kind of getting a little bit iffy, you know, and then, you know, we're like, well, we just have to do it. We have to do it, and we have to continue to make a difference, and we have to go after it, and we have to move. We cannot stay still. That's where we come in an issue. We have to continue to move.
It's funny that you said those words specifically just now about people are losing their fire, and they don't have their passion and all that stuff. I think I told you about last night. It's a podcast that I am starting right now. It's called Live Your Fire, and it's about finding passion in your life and then actually executing it. Not just saying, oh, that's cool. I had a passion for that. Never did anything with it. No, if you got a passion for something, you're probably meant to do something with it. And I want you on the show, and I want to pull you in on one of the episodes, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I just got to try to get that fire burn in people's gut.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's not there for, everybody, and it should be, and it can be.
Right. And it's connecting people to that promise, that's there, and that's been put in their life. And that's what we have to remember is our job. We're connection agents, right? We have to go out and try to help people find find what gets them going, and that's even young people, kids, elementary school, get them passionate about what they want to do, and back them and pour into their lives. Don't let them wait for somebody to tell them what they need to do. Just say, well, what's exciting? What gets you? Let's start on this. Do you like cooking? Well, let's cook something. Let's continue to build something. Let's make a cooking show or a cooking podcast or whatever. Do something, that drives people into getting them to where their destiny is.
And to not leave them along the way, just to say, oh, we're going to get you started, but know that you're committed to disciple and walk them through that. I was watching a YouTube video yesterday of a testimonial of a 15-year-old girl doing $60,000 a month in a piece of technology that will remain nameless right now. But she started doing it. Her dad helped her get going, set up her business and all that stuff. And now she's just cranking it because she has a system and she's going to follow through. The interesting thing in the interview goes back to what you guys are talking about. And that is that she is doing that in this climate. Still doing $60,000 a month. I know there's a lot of people listening and watching that are like, oh, I'd like to be doing $60,000 a month, right? Well, the reason is she didn't look at the giants in the land. She didn't look at that stuff and let it deter her from taking action. And so she said, I have a passion for this one thing. I don't know if it'll work, but I'm going after it. And she had support. And a year later, she's now doing what most people would say is a lot. And so, so I think that if we talked last episode and the episode before about the contour of our heart. And if our heart is not of the perspective that God has promised us things, then we're never going to pursue the promise and understand what that looks like. And so you guys have been obedient to the Lord in pursuing the promise that he's told you this is going to be. He doesn't set you up to fail. That's not him. Father never set you up to fail. And we can read all throughout scripture the times where he redeemed the failures, even though the people his kids didn't even believe what he said about him. But the key to this is that there were two people in this story in Numbers 13. There were two people that were able to look past the current economics place, the current challenges in front of them, and still say, I know that the promise that God has on my life is bigger than what I see in front of me. Now, in 2020, we're sitting here looking at all the craziness, and you mentioned, do we have permission to do that? Hopefully, we're still in a free country. But here's the thing. We don't look at that. We do what he says. And he said to them, go possess the land. They didn't do what he said. They sent spies in. They didn't do what the spies said, the two good ones. And so they ended up losing a whole generation. And my concern for the listeners and the people that are watching, my concern is that there's a whole generation of kingdom impact that is being missed by people because they're not doing what he says. They're not believing the promise that I've given you the land, go possess it. It doesn't matter what the climate is, go possess it.
Yeah, and I think the world is so good at telling us you can't do that. And I think especially with, just the massive amounts of information we can consume now and social media and a lot of it, I'd say it's the higher percentages on the negative side that you're going to come across. And a lot of it is just that tone of you can't do that. Calm down. You can't do that. And God's the one that says, yes, you can do that. I've given it to you. Go get it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, with that, it's easy to get discouraged, in your pursuit, even if you're trying to get after it and you feel you just keep getting blocked, or you see something, man, they're doing it so much better than we are. You get that frustration, and then, you get discouragement, and then you stall out. And there's a lot of stalled out passions that, I began it, I've got going, and now, things happen, things got in the way, and then now it's stalled. So it's like, rekindle that, get it going again. It's just, where do you stand in the trust of really what's been put into your life?
Yeah. And I mean, this is where, and you've said this before, and we might've said it on the podcast earlier too, I can't remember, but where if God showed you your entire destiny at once, you would be so overwhelmed and scared and everything. But, right, he gives you those little visions at a time to kind of get you to that next step. And, just sitting here in this studio now doing this podcast, I firmly know that this is only the first small vision. Well, actually, this is probably the fourth with the background and everything. And then, now we're starting to talk about bigger things. And it's like, I know what's coming. And now I'm not afraid of it. Now I'm excited about it. I'm pumped about it because I already know I can do it. Right. Because I've gotten my foot in the door this way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if I'd have known the big things that are planned that are coming soon that we're going to be doing, if somebody told me that up front, we definitely would have been, I don't know if we can do all that.
Yeah. Right. Well, I remember having the conversation with you guys about even just doing the podcast. And it was like, but you did it. And that's the key. So for those of you out there that are listening to this today, I want you to take a pad of paper and I want you to write down all the things that God has promised you in his word, that he's specifically spoken to you. What I love about the word is you can dig into it and find yourself in the scriptures. When Jesus was on the earth, he opened the scriptures and found himself in the Old Testament. And we can open the scriptures and find ourselves. We can find a right now Rhema word for us today, and to write down what that promise is for us. And then I want you to write down the promise, and I want you to write down the dreams and visions that you've had in the past that, as Kyle said, maybe you've stalled out, Maybe you haven't even started, or maybe you're right at the end and you're just discouraged, but you know you're going to complete it, but you need that person. One of the biggest assets for me along the way was a mastermind group of guys who were going the same direction, all different industries, I guess you could say, all different kinds of companies, but we were all going the same direction. We had the same income amount of sales and different things. So we were all about the same level, and we would just get together and talk about the challenges in our businesses and the challenges in our lives. And then each one had a different perspective. And then you would take all those perspectives. I still have the notebooks where I wrote down everybody's perspective on what I presented. And then I pulled truth out of there that helped me to navigate. And I think that the missing link in the church today is that we talk a lot about the word. We talk a lot about being light to the world. I don't necessarily know that that's, for some people, it may be standing on the street corner and yelling at cars as they go by. It may be that. But I think for most people, if you live inside the dream that God has for you, you will be a connection agent to the Father because you're going to be demonstrating his love to those around you. And so I just encourage everybody to write those things down. And where you're stuck, I ask you to go and find someone in your sphere of influence that has traversed that before, because it seems so big. But yet when you like we were talking, how do you get this started? Well, I've got some experience in that, so I can help you guys get over the first hump. Then you got to find other people that have done the other things and to get that going, start that momentum in that process. But always to go back to the promise is that he loves you. He cares for you. He doesn't want you to fail ever. And he wants you to grow in the knowledge of who he is. And so what I'm witnessing from the outside here is the transfer of love that you guys have for the community through the people that you're bringing in here. And so you are the conduit in which the love of, all the different organizations that have sat here even today and done podcasts, all that love and concern and care for the community is now getting out to the community because you guys are connection agents.
And that was the dream, and no, we didn't see it fully like that, and how it took, it just took off. So it's great.
It's good. So what is the promise that God has for you and the dreams that he's given you that you haven't achieved, started, or you're about to finish, but you're discouraged? Those are the things that God wants to move in your life as he's done with you guys. You wrote it on the board, you hung it up downstairs, people started praying with you, agreeing with you on it. And now 8 months later, we're here in the actual place and doing it. So find your cheerleaders, find your people that are going to help you. And when it comes to just being in the word and doing the basic things that we know we need to do to renew our mind, find somebody who's done it, find somebody who's doing it and partner up with them. Discipleship is not this huge, big ordeal that we have to try to wrap our mind around, to disciple somebody from their Bible reading to their marriage. That may not be your call. It may just be teach them how to read a book a day or, a chapter a day or whatever. Help them with what you know and lead them to the best ability that you can. And then encourage them and train them to lead others. That's the missing link and that's why we have apathy sometimes.
Yep. I still remember writing the dreams down on the dream board and putting them up there because I hadn't been coming to church here for very long, and I really didn't know anybody yet except for, you guys and all that. And, I'm writing down a dream, it's like, it's one of those like, oh, I had it inside. Now I'm actually going to put it out here publicly. And then I hang it up, and then I've got people coming up to me saying, hey, I saw what you wrote on the board. That's awesome. Good luck with that. I can't wait to see it.
Praying for you. Yeah.
And it was that, there's no, you almost afraid sometimes when you tell somebody something, they're going to laugh at me. Are they going to think this is stupid? There's none of that.
That happens more often than you think. Like you go to pray, so you say, "Hey, can I pray for you?" And I would tell you that you would think that they were like, "What? Get away from me!" Now they're like, "Yeah, Sure. I mean, I would say, I don't know how many times, I would love to see numbers if there is a study. If someone's ever taken the time to just go up to strangers and say, hey, can I pray for you? How many negative and positive responses have they gotten? I think that's the same thing. You don't know how someone's going to react to being vulnerable. And that's a key about anything. Anytime you take a step out, you're putting yourself out there. You're going to be vulnerable, and you're kind of wondering how that's going to be received. But again, you just power through, keep going, and people will come alongside you. You're going to align yourself with, and you're going to not align yourself with those who want to bring you back. Crab in a bucket syndrome.
There you go.
And nobody wants to see, if someone's down and wants to stay and doesn't see someone getting ahead, then want to see that happening, so just separate yourself from that, and get alongside who's going to help you out and help you up and continue building you. That's the key.
100%.
There's power in the promise.
All right.
Yes, there is. All right. Well, I hope that was helpful for a lot of people listening. If you guys want to reach out to us, you can email us at summitup@thesummitdover.org. Okay. And then if you want to visit the website, it's thesummitdover.com.
Yep.
So check us out on Facebook, listen to podcasts, and we'll be with you next time. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Summit Up. You can check us out at thesummitdover.com, and you can email us at summitup@thesummitdover.org.